Hi, Natalie. Welcome to Revitalized Womanhood. How are you?
I'm doing so well. Thanks for having me, Gina.
Okay, so tell me, is it Kovarik?
Close. It's Kovarik. I don't blame you. I don't know if I have come across a stranger that has been able to guess it right. It's Czech in by nature, and it's just spelled wonky. All Czech names are.
That's okay. Kovarik. I love it. And I love the Czech, so it's okay. I'm down for it. I just need to make sure so I don't offend you and say it over and over again the wrong way. And every time you hear it, you're going to be like...
Impossible. I have pretty thick skin, so...
I bet you do. I'm so excited we finally got together. The last time I had to cancel you because we had the flu going through our house, and I know that you understand what I'm talking about. I think I sent you a video of my pukey baby in the tub too, and you're like, yeah, I feel that.
I did. I was like, keep your juju away. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't need this.
We are both 3-time boy moms.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. So we're already kind of like kindred spirits in that sense. We know we're going through these things together.
It is a very special thing to be a boy mom. I'm very honored. I was entrusted by the man above to, raise 3 men into the world. So yeah, I definitely think boy moms can relate to boy moms, which I'm sure girl moms can relate to girl moms. There's a lot of, I think, similarities, and there's a lot of differences.
Isn't that a beautiful way of saying that you were entrusted to be the one that is raising men, right? That's a really beautiful way of thinking like that.
Yeah, thanks. I think about it a lot because I have an older one who is close to, leaving the nest. And so I think a lot about, him becoming someone's wife or husband and him, raising other children. And so I think a lot about roles in society and just, I think we forget sometimes, where we get so caught up in all like the nuance and the minute details of parenthood that we forget at the end of it. It's like we are raising a full-fledged human being that's going to go out on its own and like have impacts on society and impact other people, like their decisions, ripple out. And so, yeah, it's like a heavy thing when you think about it.
I don't know if you've done any research into me. You're like, who is this girl? But my partner is the Order of Man community and podcast, Ryan Mickler, and his son actually has a podcast called Man in the Making. You should have your son listen to it. And they do that together.
I should. I will actually 100% do that.
Yeah, it's awesome. Brecken is such a good kid and such a good thing to be talking about those kind of things because, like, how old is your oldest?
17.
Oh my gosh, he is totally a man. Oh my gosh, girl. Mine is 11. So totally different, but he's starting to come into these different things that I'm just like, I'm out. I got nothing here. Can someone tap in? I got nothing.
I am here for you over the next few years. I am here for you.
I'm like, thank you. I'm so grateful and blessed to have a husband that can handle that because single mom life is no joke. And I don't want to ever mess around with that. So bless you single moms out there that have to be the mom and the dad because that's hard.
Agreed.
Job.
100%.
Well, I already did your introduction, but would you please introduce yourself to my listeners and our community here?
I would be honored. So as we have spoken throughout the conversation, my name's Natalie Kovarik. I am a rancher's daughter. I grew up in agriculture. So I grew up in Southwest Montana on a very beautiful piece of land, a very beautiful part of the state, part of the country, raising cattle. That's what, our family did. That's what my family still does. By education, I am actually a pharmacist. And so I don't ever like to say I left the agriculture industry, but I definitely didn't think I would be where I am now. I did not think I would be married to a rancher. I did not think I would be living on a ranch. I did not think my income would be derived from ranching. And so I spent, after I graduated, I spent a lot of years as a full-time pharmacist working at, it's a relative term, but it was a larger city in Montana, which there may be some people tuning in that would think, Bozeman is small. But for Montana, it was one of the bigger cities. And so I was working at a hospital there. And then I met my husband, who ranches in Nebraska. And so, after we got married, I relocated down here to the great state of, the Midwest. And that's what we do here. We ranch. And so we have, as we mentioned, we have 3 boys. And I spend my days on the ranch with my husband. And then I also share our ranching and family storying online, which is kind of how we connected.
So the topic that I'm trying to just nail into the ground this month is obviously Women's History Month and the women who tell our stories, right? And every one of us, we all have a story to tell, right? We all have amazing stories. That's the whole thing. When I came into this, I was like, I want to interview everybody. Like, I don't just need to interview celebrities and athletes and authors and what. I'm like, I interviewed my mom. I have an episode with my mom who was raised on a farm, and my husband's mom. And because women, to me, have the most beautiful way of looking at life. And even though we are all connected and so similar in this human experience, we are all so different. And I think that's amazing. And your story that you're telling in your beautifully captured way, very unique to you. I love that your description in your Instagram is like, what if Yellowstone and Ralph Lauren catalog had a baby? Something like that. And it's true. It is totally true. Like, you flip through this account, you guys, and you expect, okay, she's she's a rancher. It's going to be like this. And then you get this gorgeous woman. If you're looking on the YouTube episode right now, I'm like, thank goodness I didn't show up as a scrub today. Like, sometimes I do. But she's this beautiful woman with this great style. Your jumpsuits are just top notch. And I love that you're almost glamorizing the ag industry and showing it from a light that's going to get people's attention so that your message comes through.
Thank you so much. You had so many compliments in that. So thank you for the kind words. I always love when women, when we're building each other up. And I've always been a big believer, if there's something to compliment someone on, just say it. Like, I don't know why we don't do that more, whether it's in real life when you just see a stranger and you're like, you look so beautiful today. Just wanted to tell you, I love the empowerment. So thank you. And also thank you for picking up on I guess almost the message and meaning behind, when I got started sharing. I have kind of, as you could probably attest to, when you share online, you do kind of go through different cycles or phases, I guess. You get, your life changes from when you started, or different things are happening. And so it just affects how you show up online. So I've shared different things, and I've come to my page sharing different things. But one of the core roots that I've always tried to incorporate, and one of the original missions of, me getting online and sharing, was to showcase the beauty of the Western lifestyle. And, what I see through my ranch wife's eyes. Growing up, I was obviously raised in agriculture. And when you are in agriculture, you're obviously living in rural communities, right? And so kind of everyone around you is doing it. Farming, ranching, it's kind of what you see, it's what you know. And so I never really gave two thoughts about a lot of people don't live this way or don't see this. And I still didn't even connect it, because I stayed in, Montana, which is, again, a more agriculture-based state. And again, our larger cities are, nothing compared to huge, urban sprawls. And so I don't think I really pieced it together until I did start sharing online and thought, oh, wow, this isn't a view everyone sees, and this isn't something that everyone knows about. And like you said, I do think that, unfortunately, because we are removed from our farmers and our ranchers, there is a stereotype of what a rancher and a farmer looks like, or what they do, or what they think, or how they should act. And so it's been a really joy to kind of break that stereotype. Like you said, I'm out here trying to make ag sexy and fun and cool and witty and smart again, and just show, the face of agriculture, I guess, from a female perspective. And so I'm honored that you kind of picked up on that through my page.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually think you're what Chip and Joanna are for glamorizing their tiny little spot in Texas, I
don't know about that, but
but you're taking it for Nebraska, because unfortunately with social media, we do, because you have an amazing message, you have a very strong message. And unfortunately for anybody to hear that message, you do have to have a page where people want to stay and look and be connected. And so you've kind of figured out your little nook. This is where it comes together, and I'm happy doing it. And I feel it when I watch your reels, is the passion behind it. And sometimes it's not fun. And sometimes we're just riding and it's cold, but we're inside the heated cab and the babies are with you, and you're doing mom life while you're out doing it, and you're trying to do business life too. It's all encompassing, right? We're women who are not being told that we can only have this or that. Whereas the generation right before us that would be doing ag, it was very different, right? They were doing very different things.
Very different things. I'll never forget a message I got one time. It made me cry when I opened it up, and we'll see if it makes me cry bringing it up again. But it was from an older ranch wife. She must have said something there to allude to her age, or maybe she said like my generation. Something cued me up that she was several generations before me. And she said that it was such an honor to watch our generation, the way the women are being involved and the way we're sharing our story. And she kind of talked about like the isolation and loneliness she felt as a ranch wife, and just, it's very different as it is, when you look at outside of agriculture for, women's role in society and how it's progressed over the last 20, 30, 40 years. And so, it's, we're trying to keep up too, I guess, here in agriculture with, empowering women and encouraging them to play a more role. It's typically a male dominated industry. And women, historically did play different, like a more, involved role. Which is not to say I am a firm believer. I love being a stay-at-home mom. I've always kind of like thought it was the, a thing to aspire to be. And so, I don't ever want to downgrade that role. I don't ever want to downgrade the, the women before me in agriculture who came and did maybe just care for the house or cook the meals for the help, because that's a really important role too. Like we're calving right now, and we're calving out a lot of calves. And I had someone kind of make a derogatory comment to me about, because I'm obviously the face in the story that's, sharing it on my page. And obviously my husband is doing more of the work out in the barn. And so I had a commenter kind of comment on that about how like I'm not doing anything but my husband is. And someone, another stranger that just follows stepped in and said, it makes a real big difference calving alone versus calving with a supportive spouse, and makes a real big difference to come into a home or a homemade meal, and just kind of listed all these things that I think, like, again, we don't have to, no role is better than the other role. It's just different. And so I think women in agriculture especially struggle with that, about like being at home, being versus out in the field. And so I just try and empower all of them, whichever place you find your role in agriculture. I hope, the women are comfortable with that, and the same for anyone outside of it. Like, I think there's a lot of different ways women can show up and inspire and tell their stories, and it doesn't always have to be the biggest, grandest way.
Well, and that reminds me of I will never forget this. When I very first started this, and I was looking into one of my very first episodes was with Heidi Powell. And so I was, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So I'm looking through all of her past stuff that she's done. And she did an episode with Lisa Bilyeu, actually. And this was my first introduction to Lisa Bilyeu. And I'm like, she said something that she said, when I met you, I knew what kind of a powerhouse businessman your husband was, right? And I knew that he was this successful, whatever. And she said, my first thought is when I meet husbands like that, when I meet men like that are these strong, very successful, is, man, he has an amazing woman supporting him. Mm-hmm. She said, I don't think about all the things he's done in his accolades. I think, wow, there is someone supporting him, because it takes, it's a partnership. And I absolutely love that you just said that, because I just got done writing my resume, I guess, a kind of a cutesy thing for my community, because I called out on Instagram and said, with all of these coaches, everyone's a coach. Everyone wants to tell you what to do and how to live your best life and the best way to do that. And it's like, have you asked to see their resume? Right? Are you going to go and have this gym instructor like train you, and he's overweight or has affairs on his wife, or you know what I mean? It's like, what's your resume behind this? And my husband and I were sitting down talking about it, and he was actually the one kind of like building me up, because a lot of times we get lost in well, I wasn't at the office, I didn't get that paycheck. But baloney, okay, if you sit down and say how much, okay, we decide as a couple that I would really love to stay home, which luckily I finally we did get to that point. But so I won't be getting this physical little check that every government says is worth this amount of money. But here's the jobs that I'll be doing. So if I'm a maid, what does a maid make in a year? If I'm a cook, what does a chef make in a year? If I'm a chauffeur, what does, right? Hospitality industry, like hotel management, things like that you have to, party planner, like think about that. All these jobs and what it encompasses. It's like you would make, if someone was paying you for these jobs, you would make 4 times what your husband could ever bring home. Right? So don't belittle these things that you, just because it was his business. No. Okay, especially we understand with small businesses and being your own boss that that's never the case, because that work comes home with you. You live it daily. You live in the struggles. You live in the success. You live in the, what am I going to do tomorrow? This is what's happening at work, blah, 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 blah. It's never one person doing it. Whew, sorry. I kind of went down.
No, I mean, I completely agree. It's actually funny you brought up that quote, because one of my favorite quotes to kind of like refer to or talk about is the same thing, that I usually say it behind like really every successful operation is a really strong ranch wife or farm wife, because I believe that. I believe the man who, again, typically, it's not always the case, but typically they're the one out doing more of the brunt labor. But I tell you, balancing the books and carrying the numbers, ranches and farms are like multi-million-dollar operations. I don't think people understand that the amount of money that comes in and out, which is like a problem in agriculture, right? Because I think that not enough people look at it like a multi-million-dollar business, which anyway, it's like a whole side tangent, bunny rabbit hole. But there's just a lot to make an operation run. And when you are, whatever the spouse, I guess, is out in the field kind of tunnel focused on like, okay, we got to raise these calves, or we got to get these fed, or we got to do whatever, XYZ job is that day. There's a lot of other small details that go into it to make all of it come together. And I just believe like the ultimate, like you said, the ultimate power couples are supportive of each other. There's a strong man and there's a strong woman, and they're working together.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, not even, I mean, I probably shouldn't poke at your rabbit hole, because people don't realize the taxes that small farms have to endure, that the big companies don't have to do. And so you're getting cut down at the knees every chance they get to cut you down. Who's they? I mean, everything. But like with the attack on beef being the big, huge hot topic right now, and with all the prices of gas being so astronomical and you just don't think about these things. So if there wasn't someone that wasn't out doing the brunt labor of things, you have to have the other person doing the business side of it. And it changes. It's not just this is what it's going to be. This is what we paid last month. This is what we do this month. It's constantly changing, and laws and regulations and what you're putting into your fertilizer and what you're getting, it's moving the cows. I'm so glad, because Yellowstone, and so I love that you actually put that on yours, because Yellowstone has brought like such again, glamorizing this idea of what this actually is and what people have worked so hard for. But I really like the new one with Harrison Ford even more, because it does touch on what the actual homesteaders had to go through, and the women and the isolation you talked about. So that's like a thing that's raw for these people that had to do that. My grandpa, so I am so disconnected from it, but my mom was raised on it. My grandpa, it was all his land that he got from his dad. And that wasn't his plan, right? He was going to school and his dad got cancer. So my great grandpa actually was the homesteader. He was the beginning. And my grandpa went to college, but came home because my great grandpa got cancer. And so that wasn't in the plan for him to take over this land. But he always said that it just was like in his genes almost. It was just like a calling, that he knew for some reason that this land would be so important to future generations, not even like him and his family, because he never made money on it. I mean, honestly, what a hard life to basically break even and pay taxes, right? All of the work that goes into it, missing fingers. I mean, he's legit, right?
So have you heard of Clarkson Farms?
Oh, I'm so glad you just said that, because I just clicked up on your episode with your co-host, and my husband and I just barely started this 2 days ago. And of course he stopped because it's the guy from the car shows, right? So he's really interested in it, but we love farm life too. So yes, absolutely.
Okay, you guys are really going to enjoy it. So I'm glad you guys are starting it. But you'll find, I'm going to give away a little bit at the end, because basically at the end of season 1 episode, I think it's episode 8, whatever it is, he basically, gives his recap, and he says he's never been happier. He's learned so much, kind of like you said, like if you're a rancher, you're not just a rancher, you're you're a mini vet, you're electrician, you're you operate equipment, you're like there's so many hats you have to wear just throughout the day to be a farmer or rancher. And so he talks about how he learned all of these skills and how he feels more fulfilled emotionally. But he says, I don't know if I can go through it all another year for 40 pence a day. I don't know what 40 pence a day is, in Europe to American dollars. But yeah, going back to our conversation about, money in agriculture, it's a cycle, right? So there are years that your operation makes money, and there are years that you break even, and there are years that you lose a lot of money. And so it's a really hard industry because so much of it is out of your control. I mean, you mentioned that it's not, you can't budget for agriculture. You don't sit down. I mean, when we joke every year, my husband does projections, for our banker. And it's like, well, this is what we think will happen. But at the end of the year, it's like almost a laugh to look back and be like, oh my gosh, look how off we were. Or, oh my gosh, look how good we did. We were so close. But like, you can't account for, it's why like, I also think that mental health is such a struggle in agriculture. It has one of the highest like suicide rates, because you're in a industry that is literally, so many variables out of control. We deal with Mother Nature, which severely can impact a farmer or rancher's income. We deal with the market prices. So, a lot of us farmers and ranchers are not price makers. We are price takers, and that is a lot of it out of our control. There's several different things that we literally have no control over, that affect the bottom line, as well as our emotional state every single day. And so it is a really hard industry to be in. And I think Clarkson's Farm has done a really good job of like in a humorous kind of fun way, shedding light on some of the realities of agriculture, which I don't do it as well as Jeremy Clarkson does by any means, but that's like also kind of like a mission behind my page, is to just peek back the curtains a little bit, like put a face to agriculture so people are more trusting of it, more interested in it, feel connected to it again, honestly, but also maybe just learn a little bit more about, what your every single day looks like for your farmers and ranchers.
Oh, absolutely. I could not believe the flooding on those episodes. Like, unbelievable. Talk about Mother Nature. I mean, wiped out entire counties worth of farmers, just gone. Their entire year just ruined after all of that. And watching everything he went through, because I watched it. My grandpa he's passed away now. My uncle actually, who is an engineer. He's an engineer, but now he is doing it all. He's taken it on. So it is like a calling, almost. But 300 acres, compared to what we're seeing on that, it's like, oh my gosh. And just the effort it goes into it. And it's unbelievable, but you have to love it. Absolutely. It's like you're saying, because your mental bandwidth of imagine everything in your life, none of it being in your control. I mean, barely any of it. Yes, that's you control that you wake up and get up and get going. But sometimes you can't even control that because your machinery breaks or the weather is bad or whatever, right? Or, oh my gosh. Yeah, you have to be able to mind over matter that every day. That's like doing those constant cognitive cycles, or else you just spiral. And that's where you're saying the mental health for that would absolutely be horrible. Yep. Wow. So what is it with your podcast? You are the co-host of the Discover Ag podcast, and your darling co-host with you, your friend, is a dairy farmer, right? Did I see that right?
Yes.
So I have a funny story. We just went to Minnesota. We did a 3-month road trip around the U.S. Last year.
That's amazing.
And it was so fun. And we stopped my friend took us to the Redhead Creamery in Minnesota. And it's darling, so good. We loved learning all about it. And happened to be at the time we just happened to end up in the milking room. I walk in and, oblivious to all of everything going on, have my black and white striped nursing cover on, and I'm nursing my baby. And I walk in and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
And everybody instantly reads my mind and looks back at me, and I'm like, yes. This is actually happening right now.
You're like, I'm a walking dairy cow.
And this is my life, guys. Just hook me right up. It's fine. I know, ladies, I know how you feel. I got you.
Yes.
But so what got you two together? How are you two connected? Are you just good friends, or did you meet in the interwebs? And
We are, like, I feel like every millennial friendship, we're a majority now. It's like, where'd you meet? Online. I met my friend online. Yeah, we've both been sharing about agriculture for, she was on probably 6 years ago, and I've been on 5 years. And there's definitely a surge of women who have started sharing their story more now. But, rewind 6, 7, 8 years ago, and the women who are sharing online in the capacity that Tara and I were far and few between. And so, as you know, you're just kind of drawn to, like-minded spirits. And so it was like, hey, you're sharing about agriculture and you look fun. I'm doing it. And I think we could be friends. We should be friends. And so, yeah, we started out just, conversing online. We really helped each other from a friendship standpoint, but also from like a business standpoint. Again, you can't Google like how to be a farm influencer. That doesn't exist. And we had so many questions about like, how much are you charging for brands? What's your strategy for social media? And, so we were also kind of like business minds together too, which was a really beautiful gift. We were able to give each other. And then we met for the first time 2 years ago. And it just kind of escalated the friendship much more quicker. As it does, if you were to imagine being friends online where you just, converse through an app or via text, and then you get to actually spend time together. And so from that, it just really snowballed very, very quickly into working together and creating. We have Elevate Ag, which is a business together. And then we have, as you mentioned, our podcast, which is Discover Ag, which you can probably attest to. But podcasting is like my newfound love. So I'm really excited that we get to start sharing together in that space.
That's amazing. I love it. You know what that brought up in my mind when you said that is because we are actually, I don't know what it was. Anyway, brought up women need to share these things, whether it's ag, showing the life of ag, whether it's talking about your postpartum journey, whether it's, the more we share, the more it gives other women permission to share or feel brave enough to share. And you start to feel like you're not alone. And that just brings us to this whole revitalized womanhood, the whole concept of community. I feel you and your co-host in my soul because my absolute bestie, like my husband and her husband both had met before us. We've probably only met in real life 3 times. She's my friend in Minnesota, and she's like my doppelganger. And my husband came home from a hunt in Minnesota, and he's like, I just met your doppelganger. It was super weird, so weird. And
it's like you were with us.
Yes, we were in Alaska with them, and her husband came downstairs, and he's like, I walked up to grab her, but I didn't know if it was Kelly or Gina. He's like, I kind of went like, oh. So finding people through communities, through the interwebs, through all of it, it's like, get it, do it, because you don't know. Back when we were before, pager era, it's you knew who you knew because you went to school together, or so the actual what's the word ratio of how many people you would actually connect with and be like-minded and have same passions and share the similar story, it was very small, right? It was very small, slim to none, small. So you were friends with who you were friends with. Now we open it up, and I've got members in this community in Canada. I've got them on every side of this country, and hopefully because we've traveled, I have friends in other countries, and I love it. It's gorgeous and it's beautiful. But it's all about being involved and engaging and telling our stories, being brave enough to show it so that other women come and they're brave enough or strong enough to show it as well.
Yeah, I think that, this new technology era we're finding ourselves in is really beautiful from the standpoint of what you said, in that it's one of the reasons I've been a podcast junkie for a really, really long time. I didn't start our own podcast until last year, but I have consumed podcasts for a really long time. And because when you think about it, the other day I was listening to 2 people I really admire, and I got to hear them have a conversation. It was like I was in the room with them, and I got to learn from them, and I got to glean information, and I was able to just suck up, what they were saying. And I thought, man, whenever in the period of history have we had the opportunity to be connected. I mean, not physically, because I've never talked to them, I wasn't actually in the room, but you're privy to so much information, to so many conversations, to just so much that we've never been exposed to in history. And obviously that comes with like, a flip side of the coin of the dangers of, me and my husband were just talking about it the other day about with our oldest, it's like, I do feel like that generation is a little bit more antsy to grow up. And it's like, well, they're exposed to so much. Before, especially if you were in a small rural community, you didn't see what was going on at colleges. You didn't see what was going on with other kids across the state and what everyone was doing across the nation and globally, and so now we do have more access to consume and see that I'm not entirely sure we as like a human race of a nature are like equipped to mentally like process and live with like through emotionally. But the access we have to learning and creating friendships and it's just insane. And the second part of that, like you said, there's all of these opportunities, but you got to go out there and do it, right? Someone had to I don't remember who it was, but one of us had to DM the other one first and say like, hey, want to be my friend? Will you help me? And the other one had to say, yeah, sure. Like, I'd love to. I've been looking for someone like that. Or, join the Facebook group that has the women in it. Join the mom group, go do whatever it is, like have the courage, be brave enough to like take that opportunity. Cause man, life, that's what it is. It's opportunities. And there are people who are going to seize them. And those are the people that you sit back and you wonder, gosh, why are they doing it? Why do they have it? What's, what do they have that I don't? And it's not anything. It's that they were just brave enough to take the first step, start the first conversation, make the first move, And so I actually for a couple of years now have hosted like women's retreats in agriculture. And the one thing I've always said, if you could leave here with anything, like I know you all want business tips and tricks and all of the things, but if you can leave with anything, leave with like a seed of bravery inside of you to do what you want to do, and leave with a network of connections. Like those are the two things you're going to need to get started more than any blueprint that I can give you or that you can create yourself. Just be brave and start connecting.
Oh, yeah, because what are you going to get if you're just, I say it to my ladies all the time, life is an engagement sport. It's not a spectator sport, right? Mm-hmm. You sit here and you want connections and you want things, right? You want help or you want this, whatever it is you want and you come looking for, but then you sit in a Facebook group and you just watch. You're just watching, right? You're a fly on the wall. And it's like, what is that going to do for you? I don't even understand that concept. It's so funny at the beginning of this episode, you said, walk up to someone and say they look cute. It's one of literally my favorite things to do. I tell my ladies all the time, like, if you need to work on your flex, start working those muscles on, engaging with people. Literally every day when you are somewhere at the school pickup line, you're somewhere all the time at the school pickup line, at Target, at wherever, you see someone and you know that she had to put effort into something, right? And in cases when we are insecure or not confident in our own skin, we don't want to say anything because that makes us uncomfortable, right? But the only way to get comfortable is to keep doing it. So you have to push yourself out of it. So I'm like, just do it. That's like my favorite thing. That girl spent time to actually do something and try. And especially when it's a mom and she's like juggling the kids and one's screaming and give me this and the baby's crying and she's got her in the carrier and whatever. And she still looks adorable. Or it's even, you got this, mama. You are doing a great job, yep. Right? It was just that little bit of how good would that make you feel if you were just like thinking, everyone's staring at me, my kids are screaming, I'm losing it, like I might as well just go home, right? And have someone walk up to you instead of the, oh my gosh, and have someone instead be like, you got this, you are doing it, right? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's I also understand that there's someone listening that's like, that is not my personality. That is really, really hard to do. And like you said, it's just pick something small, start somewhere small to like exercise that muscle, like you said. And going back to when you were talking about like confidence, I always think of like confidence as literally just proving something to yourself. Like that's how we get confident in things, right? Is by like building trust and with ourselves, essentially. Like we're confident that we're going to do this. We're confident. Like it's just a repeated series of doing something, and you'll never build that confidence or trust with yourself if you don't actually put into action the ability, an opportunity to do it. And so it's like, you want to become confident in something in life, like you got to start really, it can be the smallest of thing. Pretty soon you'll look back And in 6 months or a year later, you'll have like grown so much beyond. But like, it's just those little baby steps.
You could not have set this up better. I was literally, because one of the things that I am one of the thousands of things that I'm like, oh, I'm passionate about this. Oh, I'm passionate about this. Oh, I really love this, right? I'm just kind of coming out into this like whole women's community world, and just my gifts are just like bleh, coming at everyone, right? But so I'm working on, I would really like to make a workbook or something that basically the foundations are mindset and self-confidence, right? Because I did an interview with Sally Holder a couple back, and we actually had this debate, the chicken or the egg, which is more important first, right? Like you have to have, and she gave why she thinks mindset, and I'm like, I don't agree. I think it has to be self-confidence, right? So anyway, I was doing some research, and this says confidence doesn't mean you won't fail. It doesn't mean you're always smiling or that you never experience anxiety or self-doubt. Instead, it means you know you can handle those feelings and push through them to conquer the next challenge.
I love that.
Right? Like you just, it's like being emotionally resilient. It's knowing enough that the bad's going to come. We know it is. We don't know where, how, why, or what, but we know it's every peaks and valleys, right? It's knowing and trusting yourself that I can handle it though. Like it's going to be okay. On the other side of this is something else. And oh, so good. So good. Do you want to tell me, because we are in the month of the women who tell our stories, and what is it that lit your fire about ag? Because you were a pharmacist, and Bozeman, by the way, love Bozeman. Love it. We went to that little chicken restaurant that's so whatever popular, and literally sitting next to the window, looked out, and there's a little duck in the tulips with its little baby underneath it. And like, that road too, that is a busy air. Like, what is this duck doing here? It was so good. It was awesome. I couldn't have planned it better. But what is it that lit your fire about it? Is it because of being raised in Montana, or just because you met your husband? What is it that makes you every day be able to be like, I'm going to crush this?
So I do think it's twofold. I mean, you have kind of alluded to it a couple different times talking about your family, but I do think that this lifestyle, I don't want to say like agriculture in general, but like living a more connected to the land life, I guess, it does kind of like, once you get a taste from it, it does kind of like wiggle its way in and like nestle inside your heart. And I think it's always there. And I think it's obviously a choice to like, fan the flames, or kind of like throw water on it and be like, no, like I want to go off and chase dreams and live in a big city, or, live a different lifestyle. But I think that seed's always there, and it's kind of like pulsating, because it's just a different way to live. It really is. The town I'm outside of is 2,000 people, not very big. I look out my window and all I see is rolling hills. Our neighbor is not within distance from my house to see. And so there's just a lot of different ways we live than I would say like the average person. And they're appealing ways, to live, right? Like, who doesn't want to wake up to, like a beautiful blue sky and the sounds of nature, and just, the way you are when you're more connected to the land. But I think what really fanned the flame, I guess, to like, share online and step away from my career as a pharmacist was my husband's love for the industry. There are women out there who love cows and they love ranching, and they are just, like I don't know, like the stereo, like the perfect picture loving ranch girl. And that's not me. I do not love cows as much as like a lot of women in the industry do, but my husband does. My husband is extremely passionate. I mean, he's one of those lucky people that from, the age of 3 or 4, when you hear like, I know I want to grow up and be a pilot. I know I want to be a dentist, like whatever it is, he knew he wanted to ranch and raise cattle. And he has never wavered in that. And he would never change. He would never want to do something else. He doesn't have an inkling. When we talk about you and I being like multi-passionate and how we want to like try different things, and ooh, like that looks fun over there, I think I can do that. Ooh, maybe I like want to try that out. He's just like through and through a cow guy. And so I think when you are surrounded by someone who is lit on fire for something, it's almost impossible to not have that like ripple over into you. And I do love the lifestyle, and I do love raising my kids the way we get to, and I do love getting to spend all the time I get to with my husband. Like, there's so many perks to our lifestyle. And so I think part of it was being raised in it, but I think a huge portion of it is that I married the person I did, because I also think I could have plopped down in the middle of New York City and fit right in marrying a businessman. You know, I could have like adjusted and lived that lifestyle, or I could have been plopped down like on the surfs, you know, a little beach town, and like raised my babies in on the surfboard, and like figured that out with the husband who was passionate about that. But I think God knew what he was doing when he placed me with my husband, because, I think that I'm just very, very happy and content with our lifestyle. And I think it's a medley of different things.
And you can tell that what he's doing and his passion for it is infectious for you, right? And so you do want to show it. You do want to be like, listen, this is such a cool thing. Watch. Why else would anybody post anything? It's like, why do people post food when they travel? It's like, look at this. This is the coolest thing. You need to see this, right? And that's what you're doing. I think that's what you're capturing so well in your reels. I love them. So how then, so is your 17-year-old like on board? He's like, I'm going to do this, ranching life, go big or go home. Or is he like, nah, I think I need to go try some things and figure it out on my own?
So Tad has wings that he cannot wait to spread, which, I feel like if we have done our job as a parent, it is a good thing, right? Like, our children should be ready to enter into the world. And it's a really hard thing. Like, why, God, did you do this to us? Like make us love something we want to keep so close to us. But yeah, he very much so is ready to leave. He wants to go to a big school. He's actually super passionate about golfing. And so that is like a big decision for him about where he'll end up for college. But so we're trying to find a balance. He's very interested in agriculture. I think one of the things that a lot of people, and even within agriculture, that is something missed, that you think in order to be involved in farming and ranching, you have to be a producer. Like, that's all there is, just production ag. Like, if I'm going to be involved in agriculture, I have to be a farmer or rancher. I have to plant something, grow something, or raise some sort of livestock. And that's not true. There are a ton of jobs throughout the industry that, comprise the agriculture industry. So my son is somewhat drawn to production agriculture, but I think there are things of it, just as his parent, I can recognize, like, I don't know if you'd be truly 100% happy being just a rancher. And so I am kind of pushing him into ag engineering, where he could kind of maybe work with, like maybe a feedlot where they're designing different projects, or, like maybe it is, irrigation systems or something like that. So I could maybe see Tad being involved in agriculture in that capacity. And that's kind of what I'm maybe encouraging as his mother. But I could also see him going off and getting a degree and then deciding that maybe production ag is, what he wants to do. I just really want to give him that choice. It's a choice my parents gave me. It's why they encouraged, I have 3 sisters, and they encouraged all of us to go off the ranch, go get a degree that is not agriculture based, because they knew that if we were going to come back to the ranch, they really wanted it to be a choice and not like an obligation or necessity. Like, that's all we had. And I kind of want that same thing for my son. Like, I want him to know that he can do whatever it is, whether maybe it's completely outside of agriculture, but I think Tad is really drawn to ag. And so I do think he'd get a degree in agriculture. But I just want him to have that choice where he doesn't feel like he has to take over the ranch. But obviously, if that's what he chose after he, went and experienced the world, then I'd be very happy with that too.
I think the murderer of a fully lived, happy life is what if.
Yeah.
So I think that, and that's how we raise our kids. It's doing now. So my husband's Instagram handle is actually One Life So Live, because why put off for tomorrow what we can do today? If we have the ability to, if we say we want, like people that want to homeschool, it's like, then do it. Mm-hmm. Why are you waiting? If that is something you already have that little spark in you, like, let it ignite and go for it. Because guess what? You can always put them back in school. You can always, you're not stuck just because you made a decision to do something. You're not like forever cement on your feet and you're stuck there forever, right? So why not go? Like, we have this whole philosophy for our kids. It's like the gap year that they do in Australia and Europe. It's go a year for a year or two after high school and learn who you are. Like, make bad decisions that hopefully are not fatal, scary, bad decisions. But that's the whole point of raising men, right? Is they have to figure these things out for themselves, or else how are they going to be able to handle when life throws those things at their families, when they're raising their kids, right? They have to lead a family. They are the protect, provide, preside. They have to lead a family. So we have to get them ready for that. And the only way they're going to figure that out is, like you said, you take the spread your wings mentality and let them fly. And that is so hard. I'm not ready for it yet. I obviously have a long ways to go. So I'm dealing with my post last night. If you go back and want to see it, anybody, this will be, it was very sad. It was a very, very sad post. And I was feeling very raw because it's a chapter closing and I am no longer nursing my baby. And I've been nursing babies since 2011, right? Like having them in my bed and nursing them. And that's a big thing to shut a door on and recognize there's no more coming, right? That I won't do this ever again. So for you being on the cusp of this next chapter and this door closing, man, I feel for you, mama, because oof.
Yeah, if there's one thing I've learned having children spread out, because I have my teenager and then I have a toddler and then I have a baby. And so I have learned that no chapter, or at least in my opinion, no chapter or stage of parenting is better or worse than the other. There's just another one. And so I've always tried to really focus on like, okay, what's the next good thing then? Like if like you're in your instance, it's like, okay, I'm no longer nursing. And that's like really heartbreaking and sad to work through. It's like, okay, well, what's the good thing that they weren't doing before that I now get to? Is that like, okay, now I get to like converse with my kid. Like he's going to be talking soon and we get to like hang out and I get to like know him as a human, you know? So I always try to focus on that because I feel like with my oldest, as he got bigger, it was like hard to say goodbye to those things that they're growing out of. But it was really beautiful to move into a stage where they become like your friends and you get to like do things with them and you get to experience life with them. And instead of like dragging them along on a trip, we were like, oh my gosh, we have to pack all the bags. And it's like, it's fun. Like they get a company, like we get to go travel together. And so I think there are chapters that close, but the doors that open are not any better. They're just different. And if we can focus on like, okay, something new is coming, like something that I didn't get to experience before, I think it makes motherhood a whole lot easier because there are a lot of hard things to say goodbye to.
Yeah. And it's constantly changing and we never know what's going to happen. You're so right. That was so beautifully said. Thank you. That was my little pep talk.
Here for you. I got you.
I worked like 3 cognitive cycles, like just in 10 minutes alone this morning, putting my makeup on. I went through 3 completely different cognitive cycles for 3 completely different things. And I had to like talk myself back out of each one of them. I swear it's just those one days, where it's just like, breathe. This too shall pass, and keep going.
Yep.
I love it. So many amazing things. So how old are your littles then? I know you've got little baby, but then how old's your middle?
My middle is 5 and then the youngest is 2.
5 and 2. Okay. So do you have animals other than cows?
We have horses. So we, out of enjoyment, we have horses, but also out of necessity. So if you follow me on Instagram or want to, eventually you'll see summertime and spring. We are on horseback a lot. That's how we move our cattle. We are in an area of Nebraska called the Nebraska Sandhills, which is a very beautiful place. A lot of people think of like Nebraska as flat and cornfields. And I am here to tell you we do have that as a part of our economy, but we also have this really lush ecosystem called the Nebraska Sandhills. So it's very rolling hills. It's very steep land. There's a lot of areas that you just can't get to, 1 by vehicle, but 2, even like with a 4-wheeler or like an ATV, like our Polaris Ranger. I wouldn't feel safe doing it. So the only way I will like ride those hills or will move cattle through them will be horses. So we have cattle, we have horses, we have some ranch dogs, a couple kittens running around, but we don't have anything like, sheep or goats or chickens or anything like that. So
always kittens. It was like a never ending supply of kittens when I was little. Like
yes,
always. Like all we'd had to do. And now for my kids with my husband's parents' place, it's bunnies. Like all you have to do is go search in the hay bales and you'll find nests of bunnies, like constant bunnies. The reason I ask is because I 100% am behind the concept of, and it is hard for people that don't understand this lifestyle, and you're like next level, right? I'm Southern Utah, so we have a property where we do want to invite people out and let them feel like there are bighorn sheep right here, and there are wild horses down here, and we do Dutch oven dinners, and this is like a normal thing for us. And so like we want to share that, and we know that's why people pay fortune for some of the stays out here, is because they can't even fathom the concept of sleeping in a tent, right? Or, where for all of us, it's like, really? That's so normal. But so for us, when COVID hit, we actually had just gotten home from traveling for 3 years around the world with our little boys. And we came home specifically with the intentions of getting pregnant, and got home and put the kids in school in January, and then March hit. And we were like, what the heck? This is so weird. So we had the opportunity. It was so lucky and beautiful to be in quarantine on his parents' ranch. And so the entire time while it's like doomsday going on outside, which we really didn't have much concept of because we were so isolated and kept ourselves from it. But my kids' experience of that time was getting to have the new baby goats and getting to have, like, my little boy had one follow me around. He named him Pancake. And every picture, I just have this picture that I took of him walking away from me with his little boots, and he had something shoved down his pant, like his belt, like they do, shove all sorts of things. It's probably a feather or something, who knows. And this little goat following along next to him. And it's like, if I could express a feeling of what that feels like to everybody, it would be that picture. It would be that childhood, that, so that freedom and carelessness and whatever. And I think you show that so beautifully for your kids. And I do think that's why people are so interested in following you, because it is kind of like a FOMO. They're like, oh my goodness, this would be so beautiful to be doing this instead of walking to school. And I see the cool parts about walking to school in traffic in a big bustling city, like we've been there, we've done it, we've been everywhere, but there is just something, like you say, that is just in your core that makes you want the wide open spaces, right?
Yeah, it's funny. When you were telling the story about your kids, I just kept thinking they were probably like, man, COVID's so cool. Can we go back?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
COVID again? Can we do that over? But yeah, I mean, the other day we had my youngest, Rue, so he's little over 2.5, maybe, I don't even know, 2 and 3 months or 4 months or something. We had to tube a calf. So a calf was sick. And so to help them out, you stick a tube down their throat and you give them like colostrum, and you can give them electrolytes and different things. So we're tubing a calf. And he wanted to get out and help my husband. And so he was out there, he was kind of holding the little bag, and he was just standing there, and he was, again, so close to calf. And I just kind of sat back and I thought, man, it's so cool, all the experiences that ranch and farm kids get. They get to live. I feel like they get to live. They really get to like live and go out and experience. And it's not that like the best of days. Sometimes, sometimes they're like screaming in the ranger because they want to go inside, or like, it's not like always idealistic and picturesque and fun. But I do think they're just exposed to like life. Like in general, they're exposed to the cycle of life. They're exposed to like death and the birth, more than like the average person. And they're exposed to nature. And so they get to see things more and feel things more. And so, yeah, again, going back to, I feel like I've said it so many times, but one of the things I love so much about our lifestyle is the way I get to raise our family. My husband and I think people will be shocked at how much time we spend together. But we love it. It's like what works for our marriage. And I couldn't imagine getting up in the morning, and going to my full-time job and then not being able to see him until 5 or 6 at night. And then we get a couple hours and then we do it over again. And I couldn't imagine not, having my kids with me as much as we do. And so I do feel really blessed. Again, it's not always roses. But this is like what we choose. This is what we wanted. We want the negative that comes with the positive, because for us, the positive far outweighs the negative.
And it's being able to make the choices for yourselves. It's being able to say, I choose this. It's like all of these Instagram accounts. I actually went through and did a whole thing, made a big show even about it, of unfollowing all these accounts that are these moms that are making these satirical jokes about, and about their husbands being lazy or stupid or not helping with the kids, or a mom that to get a vacation would rather throw herself over the stair railing to go to the hospital because she can't get a vacation otherwise, right? And it's like hundreds of thousands of followers thinking that this is an okay way of thinking. And it's like, you made that choice, right? You make the choice every day to live fully in your life. You make the choice every day to decide, this sucks. I don't want to do this anymore. Or, figure out, use a planner or incorporate knowledge into your life so you're not stagnant, so you're growing. When kids get bored and act out, it's because they're not being stimulated. What do you think is happening to people that feel like they need to make jokes about this kind of a lifestyle? So I love that you said that we are living in our choices that we made, and the negative is part of that. And we knew, because that's a choice we make.
Yep.
So you kind of already just said it beautifully, because I have a question and I don't want to put you on the spot with it, but because you kind of just said it. What is it that you're passing on? What story or mark on the world are you leaving for future generations? Because you are writing your story. As we speak, imagine, I told my ladies in our community, I'm like, imagine waking up and there's that person narrating your life. Gina walked into the kitchen. Gina got her cup of coffee. Then she did this, right? I mean, imagine your life is being written as we speak. So this is your grand story. What are you going to pass on?
Yeah, and we have alluded to it already, but I think what I really want, especially I think of my boys, right? So when they look at me and think about their mother, I hope what I instilled in them, or what they can glean from the way I, choose to live my life, is that I did try, is that I did, it's the kind of the what if mentality we've talked about before. I want them to look at me and be empowered and brave enough to try the thing, make the change, do something different. Do the thing that people think they can't do the thing that people think it's weird that they're doing it. I think bravery is such a beautiful thing to carry. I think it's actually at the core of very successful people. I think there's a lot of attributes of successful people, but I think across the board, one of the things they are is just brave. They were brave enough to start when no one else would. They were brave enough to start over when they failed, and over again when they failed. And they were just brave. And so I hope that's the story I'm telling my kids, is live a life full of bravery, live a life. And again, I know I have, there's different privileges that we all have. And so I know it's not as easy for everyone to wake up and say, I'm going to make this choice to radically change my life today, or I'm going to make the choice to no longer do this job and switch to a different one. But there are little choices you can make that could sway, your future in a very big way. And so I think we like to over exemplify what it has to be to make a radical change in our life. It doesn't have to be big and grand. Little things add up. They compound really quickly. It's like math, right? Compounding, interest, numbers. It's the same thing with life. And so I just think if you're just brave enough to do the smallest thing, and I hope my boys are brave enough to do all the things. And I hope when they look at me, they think, Mom, my mom was a really brave person.
So great. When you were saying that, I had two women, two very strong, beautiful, amazing women, both completely different episodes on talking about completely different things. And they basically made the statement that I said, when do you know when it's time to change, right? I mean, that's what we kind of got to in both those places. And they said, when the pain of staying is no longer, the pain of changing is no longer as scary as the pain that you will be suffering if you stay, right? So yeah. I think what you're saying is, if you're doing these small things that they'll compound over time, that it will just come naturally. It will just happen naturally, because that's where you're being pulled, right? It's like a chain on your heart, and you're naturally being pulled in the direction that you're supposed to. But you have to allow yourself to be pulled that way. You have to be curious. You have to be brave. You have to allow for these things to happen, right? Because you're getting stuck on the stories that we tell ourselves of it's always more dramatic, someone making instead of just asking someone a question that they think, oh, maybe this person's mad at me, right? Instead of most people just walking up and saying, are you mad at me?
Yeah.
How often do we just sit and we're like, oh, they're mad. I don't want to bug them. I'm going to let it like do this. And then the next thing they do, it's like, oh, is that because they're mad at me? Right. Your brain is constantly telling you these stories of these things. And it's usually not at all the case. Right. But so just do it. Just take the step and just, I love it. Be brave. Okay. I wrote that.
Also, one of my favorite, Ed Milet, he talks a lot about the stories we tell ourselves to like serve ourselves. So we all, everyone, like I'm guilty. I have stories I tell myself. You have stories you tell yourself, and people listening. We all have like a story we tell ourselves to keep ourselves safe. Like I've done a lot of ego work about too, also how like our ego works to like keep us safe. Because again, like if you trace back to our ancestors, I mean, we had to have like primitive reactions to like staying safe. Like, don't go out and do that. Like, you could actually die. Like, don't explore what that is. Stay here, stay safe, stay what you know. And because we don't have that anymore, I think we're still like at our core, we're like humans are a lot of chemistry, right? So there's still a lot of, things flowing through us, chemicals flowing through us that are like trigger our brain in very like chemical ways to react. And a lot of that is ego work. Like we can't fathom making the change because of the scarce behind it. But if you could do ego work behind like, okay, what's the worst that really happens if I do make this change? Like, is it as bad as I'm telling myself? Is it, if someone sees me doing this and I fail, is it really like, is it going to be soul crushing? Is it going to deter my marriage? Is, my family going to fall apart? Will I not have the paycheck? Like, put yourself in this situation, and usually it ends up being like, oh no, my ego's just probably going to be a little bit bruised. And so a lot of it comes down to that too, like just, I don't know, doing the ego work and like understanding, like staying safe. And I don't know.
That can open up we could record an entire episode on where that would take us. And that's caring what people think. And, the compare game and caring what people think and living a life that other people expect of you and checking the boxes and fitting in the box. And that's like, we'll record that episode later.
Sounds good.
Yes. And it's funny that you said that, because we did a monthly topic a couple back and it was on fear. And if you probably asked everyone in my community what one thing is they've taken from this entire community so far, maybe one of two things, but one is, what's the worst that can happen? Yeah. That is literally my motto. It's my mantra, because I've seen some pretty worse. I mean, obviously there are some severely worse, but even still, I had my mother-in-law on recording talking about how she, 7 months pregnant, had to drag her 27-year-old lifeless bodied husband into the car to take him to the hospital where he had aneurysm, right? I mean, there are those stories, and she's still come out of it one of the most happy, smiley, positive people I know. So yes, I understand there are those situations, but really the majority of time, what's the worst thing that can happen? And I've lived through it, and it really wasn't that bad. I mean, it was, and it was exactly what you're saying. A lot of it was the pride around it, and I failed, and we failed, and what if my marriage fails? What will people think? Well, and it gets right down into that kind of stuff. And you just have to work on going back to being brave enough to be the one that stands up and shows it, like you and your Instagram account. Beautiful.
Thank you.
I want to just real quick, if you'd like to share your courses, you have all of these amazing courses, and Elevate Speaking, Elevate Instagram, brand partnerships. And then you already talked about your Elevate Ag. These are little mini courses that you do. If anybody's interested in these, go check out their, do you have a link in your bio for all of them?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Good. Amazing. So everybody, you can go there. It's just your name, right? Instagram handle is your name. And it's Kovarik, you guys, not Kovarik. It's Kovarik.
Yep. Instagram was my first platform. It's the platform I love the most. So I kind of like base my house there a little bit. And then from there, you can find me, where else I show up. My second favorite platform is podcasting. And since everyone tuning in probably likes podcasts, you could hop over and listen to us at Discover Ag. We break down, my co-host and I, we break down trending topics in the ag and food space. And so if you feel like you are curious about food or curious about things that's going on in the food space, or you see articles that you're like, man, that's crazy, what's going on, it has to do with agriculture or food, we are probably giving our, 2 millennial cents opinion over on Discover Ag, and it's been really rewarding to share on that platform. So I would love it if you guys would join us over on Discover Ag.
Absolutely. I will put everything in the show notes. And thank you so much. I'm so glad we finally got to do this. That was so good.
I'm
so sorry. I'm
too.
like, I don't have my notes ready.
No, it's okay.
So instead, I'm like shoveling my taco salad in as fast as I can. I'm like, I got to have some energy.
No, it's always fun to see where the conversation goes naturally.
That's real life right there. That's real life behind the scenes, folks. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time, Natalie.
See you around.